We are here to talk about sustainable business and Asia's competitiveness in the green economy. I'm from Bloomberg NEF. Bloomberg NEF, for those of you who do not know us, is a research provider within Bloomberg, and we look at global commodity markets as well as technologies and business models that drive global decarbonization. So in order to just set the context for today's discussion, I have a couple of charts that I pulled together. On the first chart, if you could project that, yeah, thank you so much. On the first chart, this is in our annual exercise of accounting where investments into the green transition or energy transition is happening across the world. Every year we go about tracking where are new renewable energy projects getting built, where are EV sales being deployed, and also all the other technologies that is driving the energy transition. And what we've seen is that APAC as a region is historically one of the regions where we have seen majority of investments going historically. In fact, in 2022, we tracked record investments, about $1.1 trillion flowing into the energy transition, of which about 59% went into the APAC region. On the second chart I have, this is about within APAC, where did this investment go to? You can see renewable energy, which is the black bar here, accounting for a large share, over half, and then electrified transport within APAC becoming the second largest portion for all the investments that's flowing into energy transition in the APAC region. Together, these two sectors account for about 91%, which means that we have a lot more investments that needs to flow into all the other sectors that require decarbonization as well. So this is where we are today, and over the next 30 minutes, what we would like to discuss is where we are today, what does this mean in terms of changing geopolitics and dynamics, and how can Asia stay competitive over the next 20 or 30 years as we roll forward this transition. And with us, we have a very eminent set of panelists to talk to us about different aspects of this transition, and I would like to welcome all of them and thank them for their time today here. To kick off our discussion, I would like to first go to Peck, to you. Let's start with power. Renewable energy, as you can see, is one of those sectors where we've seen historically a lot of investments flowing in the APAC region. When you look at the status of deployment of renewables in APAC, how do you rate that in the region? And I also know that you're investing huge amounts and building large projects in Southeast Asia as a region. Very eager to hear your thoughts on the readiness of Southeast Asia as well to kick forward this transition.
Thank you. My name is Peck Khamkanist. I'm a founder and CEO of Impact Electrons Siam, a humble small company in Thailand where we tackle a large project. It's been 12 years of working on that project, Monsoon 600 megawatt wind farm. We built in Laos, supplying to Vietnam under a long-term PPA, which is bankable. I think this is a very challenged project, but it set up a platform for more renewable, enable more renewable into the region. The project, it's make it possible, I think it's by our belief, firstly, and a team effort. It's led by the managing director, Kunat Utanawat, and I think we have a great PPA where we have I would say at a fair PPA, which provide Vietnam the cheapest renewable energy power into their portfolio. In addition, I think we have innovative financing led by our mandate lead arranger, who is here today, Jackie Sutani from ADB, and other 8 banks that participate in that lendings. Additionally, not only the wind farm that we own, but very strategically, we also own a 500 kV double circuit that deliver power from Laos to Vietnam. And it is strategic because the wind is highly complementary to the hydro, which is Laos has abundant resources. When combining both, we can provide Vietnam with stable and dispatchable renewable energy, which is quite key. I think our ambition is not stopped there. I think we're looking at expanding additional 1 gigawatt on the adjacent site and to combine them with surrounding hydro to be able to deliver, fully utilize the transmission line of 2 gigawatts. So that's has been our next chapter, and I'm excited to.
Thank you. Same question again. How do you rate, when you look at Southeast Asia as a region, how do you rate the momentum here with respect to policies to support renewable energy deployment?
Well, I think we had a big support from government of Laos and Vietnam. And I think, as you're aware also, there's a lot of other countries is having a policy to promote the renewables, such as Singapore with the Singapore imports. That's one of the next target of us. I think we like to work on, we participate in the Singapore imports together with EDF. We plan to build subsea cable, 1,200 kilometers, taking power from Laos to Singapore. It's a crazy ideas, but when we start monsoon 12 years ago, people think we're crazy. So you're always crazy until you did it. So.
Yeah, sure. I mean, yes, the policies are starting to come in. Big projects are starting to come in. Isao-san, to you, the question about transport. Electric vehicles and electrified transport, another big area of investments that's flowing into the energy transition. But historically, a large part of that has been driven by China and its huge scaling up of the electric vehicle industry. Please take us to how Nissan is driving the growth of electric vehicle adoption and manufacturing in APAC region.
Yeah, so it's one of the hot topics even within the industry these days. And as you mentioned, as you started off on how geopolitics are also impacting the entire automotive industry, not only the supply chain, but also from the policies aspects. We see US going to their own direction in terms of the policy. Europe is another, where you need to be selling EV to be compromising or leveraging the penalties that you need to pay. Now, where we stand in terms of emerging markets, especially Southeast Asia. So we know that some governments in this part of the world are pushing for EV for different kinds of reasons, whether you have the natural resource to commercialize it, or you want to continue to be the hub of the export in terms of transition to technology from the conventional gasoline engine to EVs. Now, we see that Chinese OEM are aggressively and strategically in expanding their footprint to this part of the region in Southeast Asia. And from our point of view, the speed, to be honest, faster than we thought to begin with, because of the readiness of infrastructure is not there yet. Having said, just the statistic point of view, 60% of cars sold in Hong Kong last year were BEV. 15% of cars sold here in Singapore were BEV. And just last month, 10% of the total sales in Thailand were pure BEV, and all led by either Tesla or the Chinese OEM. So I think this is where not only Nissan, but many Japanese automotive companies, especially having a predominant presence in this Southeast Asia, are revisiting our entire strategy, and not only on EV, but on the supply chain as well. Because we've been here for decades making gasoline diesel cars, which are needed by each of the country. At the end of the day, still even today, the customers decide which car that you want to buy. But I think the trend is shifting. We see that visibility, and I believe your statistics shows that there are significant investment year on year coming on the electric transport. So how Nissan will compete in this very competitive environment, and understanding where we set a target of carbon neutrality towards 2050. So there are basically 4 pillars how we are going to go about it. So one is to continue to invest in the innovative batteries. This is meaning that we have started to work on making the all solid-state battery, we have already announced to commercialize it latest by 2028. So our team in Yokohama headquarters are working day and night. What does it mean? It will bring the efficiency and also the cost drastically down to today's conventional batteries. So that's one. Number two, having the BEV in place, still there are many countries are in the transition mode. We continue to invest in more eco-friendly engine, namely our technology is based on EV, but what we have is an e-power technology. It moves with 100% electric, but without a need of a charge. So we continue to invest in technology that will probably bridge between today's conventional gasoline diesel engine to BEV. Third, we have started actually producing and selling EV back in 2010. Since then, we've been working in creating the ecosystem around and going beyond the EV. So we have a recycling system, remanufacturing system, how we are going to reuse the battery after it has been taken out from the market. And fourth, we continue to invest in efficiency in the manufacturing. And one of the proof points is our collaboration in Thailand, where we have the solar panel from Peck's company that will help us to reduce the emission by more than 5,000 tons a year. So there are here and there work that has been done and in progress to be contributing to one of the regions that generates CO2 emission globally. So I think those are the perspectives that we see from a transportation point of view.
Thank you. Evolving geopolitics, US, Europe policies there. We'll get into more details of this. And also collaboration and setting up manufacturing, especially for batteries and focusing on the technology. And technology is a good segue to come to you, Marie. We've talked about renewable power and transport, but there are lots of other sectors that also needs to go through decarbonization. And some of those technologies are still in very early stages, and that's where you come in. So please tell us a little bit about your investment portfolio or your companies or your projects in the region, and also what are some of the technologies that you're most excited or optimistic about?
Thanks, Alan, and thanks Bloomberg for having me. So I'm Marie. I'm one of the founding partners of Wavemaker Impact. We launched about 2 years ago with a mission to build a portfolio of climate tech companies that can abate 10% of the global carbon budget. And we do that by working with incredible entrepreneurs in the region to build what we call 100 by 100 companies. So companies with the ability to abate 100 megatons of carbon emissions equivalent and be $100 million revenue companies on an annual basis. So, when we launched Wavemaker Impact, we did a kind of back-of-the-envelope calculation, and we realized that actually it's possible to abate about 50% of the global carbon budget just using the technology that we have today. The challenge, particularly in this region, is one of misaligned incentives. So the structures, the incentives are not there to really drive adoption. And that's what we thought, okay, that's something that the startup world knows how to do, right? How to create incentives, get users on board, drive adoption. And I think the second part of it is that, carbon is physical, distributed, and embedded. So, a lot of our energy infrastructure, air transport infrastructure is built around, these large centralized hubs of production. And when you look at it from a carbon lens, what you realize is that carbon is incredibly distributed. In the region, on average, households sit on about 9 to 10 tons of CO2 emissions on an annual basis. A rice farmer, for example, sits on half a hectare in our region. They cultivate a very small amount of land. So these are the challenges that exist in our region. So in terms of the sectors that we focus on the 5 biggest drivers of emissions in the region, which are land use change and agriculture. Together, that's about 50%. They're highly interlinked. The biggest cause of deforestation in the region is agriculture. We look at energy in the built environment, industrial processes, and transportation as well. So the types of technology that we're most excited about is technology that creates, increases revenue or decreases cost for customers and just happens to do it through green ways. So a great example of that is one of our portfolio companies, Agros, which is decarbonizing smallholder horticultural farmers in the region. starting with replacing diesel irrigation pumps with solar irrigation. And when Max, our founder, is going and selling solar irrigation pumps in the field, he's not talking about the impact of climate change or why solar is better than diesel. He's simply just saying that using solar irrigation can increase a farmer's revenue by up to 60% on an annual basis because they don't have to pay the variable cost of diesel. And because they don't have to pay the cost of diesel, they can fit in a third season. So it's this kind of low-cost, decentralized technology that isn't heavily reliant on R&D or science, but instead more kind of like an engineering challenge. How can I make a solar pump economical for a smallholder farmer here? How can I make a biochar pyrolysis machine workable on an SME basis? And it's creating incentives for customers around the region to adopt this technology because it makes good business sense, rather than having to pay a green premium or having to invest in sustainability. So that's the type of innovation that we're super excited about.
Fantastic. I think, unless and until what we've seen is unless and until solutions are cheap, it's difficult to distribute it and scale it on a distributed basis. Shifting gears a little bit, geopolitics and the impact of the growing divergence in policies in different regions and what that means for Asia. If I can get like a 1-minute answer from all three of you about the impact of Inflation Reduction Act as well as other policies in Europe, like the CBAM or any other carbon-related policies or the Net Zero Industry Act that's coming up in markets like Europe, and the impact on investments that's flowing into Asia or APAC as a region. Do you think it's a positive thing or a negative thing for APAC as a region? Marie, let's start with you and go around.
Okay, I think I might have a, somewhat controversial view on this. I mean, first of all, I think a lot of governments in a region, particularly Singapore, which is our host country today, is doing a tremendous amount in terms of a policy environment and helping pave the way for more investment to flow into climate tech. That being said, I think this is not a challenge that we can rely on governments to solve for us. And particularly in ASEAN, it's so many countries at different stages of development with different kind of objectives and outcomes that they're looking for. So I think this is really where the private sector has a role to play and it has a role to play in coming up with new business models that are genuinely profitable and not reliant on feed-in tariffs or incentives from governments. And that's where I think we'll crack something that's truly sustainable.
Okay, so don't rely on policies and don't think about geopolitics. Okay, Peck, what about?
No, I share Maria's view. I feel like we met for 10 years, but I think we just met. But I think I share a lot of her view on, I think the private sector can help the policy to be implemented in the optimal and sustainable ways. One of which is what we do with our project. It's never been done before. We start with the new policy. We start with the clean PPA, a white paper basically that allow providing the cheapest energy to Vietnam with international bankabilities. I think beyond that, on the micro level, we work with Nissan on total decarbonized solution. But the thing that we are pushing for is open access. I think to allow more sharing of the renewable energy and allow more access for renewable energy in all the ASEAN level. But I think it has to be more private-led because, as Maria said, quote unquote, government has many agendas. But I think we are hopeful, and I think we believe that it's coming along, especially in Singapore. Actually.
Maybe one thing to add is that climate tech, I think, was news this week, is now officially the largest sector of VC. So I think there is a tremendous amount of interest from the private sector and funds flowing in to fund innovation in this space. So I think it's a good link.
Okay, so two of our panelists saying technology is going to reduce the impact of these sort of policy changes in the APAC region and how it's dependent on other policies in other regions. Isao-san, what do you think?
Well, I can only talk from the automotive industry point of view, but as Marie said, the speed of the development really differs from country to country, even within this region. And government, as Peck said, has many perspectives, many agenda. And definitely, automotive company cannot do alone. If you want to push for electric vehicle, for an example, infrastructure has to be there, incentives need to be there to promote it. But one thing that we should not also forget is the speed of the transition and the transformation. As I mentioned earlier, that we've been developing the automotive industry, namely in Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia, for many decades. And automotive company alone cannot make a car. We need 30,000 parts to build the 1 unit of a car. Now, if we push with this speed of the transition, electric vehicle normally requires 1/3 of that. So how do we make this industry sustainable so that not only the automotive companies are leading the way, but we need to make sure that our tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 suppliers are coming on the way on the transition. Otherwise, the automotive industry itself will not be sustainable. So this is something that we need to work with the respective departments in respective governments, making sure that there is a right speed for the transformation and the right solution and the right product for the customers in each respective country. I think this is something that we forget sometimes, that pushing too much from the product-led, but also we need to think from the customer side. And another thing that we tend to forget is to how to make the supply side feasible. So more and more EV requires, let's say, fast chargers. More electricity is required. Are we there yet in this part of the world to generate and provide and supply enough electricity to the society that are required? I mean, we were just talking before the discussion. In Vietnam, I was there last week, they still have a planned blackout. Is country ready to push for such kind of electrified world where tons of supply of energy are required? I mean, how can we make together? So this is not about the automotive industry, but as a society as a whole, how can we make a sustainable society in this part of the world in a way that is suitable for our region to develop? And I think it requires partnerships, it requires support from the governments, and definitely companies like yourselves that are coming with the technology but needs funds to go with it. I think collective work needs to be done in making sure that we set a target that is in a sustainable manner. I think that's how I see that there is a necessity on the collaboration part in this part of the world especially.
So tailored solutions and partnerships critical for scaling up some of these solutions and making sure Asia continues its path towards the green economy. We have about 6 minutes left in the clock. Meg, I would like to pass this to you to see if there are any questions from the audience that are there for our panelists.
Yes, we have one question for everyone. What would you like to see as far as government action and regulations that could help to move the green economy forward?
Who'd like to go first? Peck, let's start.
I don't really rely on government policy that much. I usually have an ideas and approach government. I think it's the other way around. But I think one thing, I'm not talking about the government, but I think one thing that we all should be recognized of is sustainable. It's not just about renewable energy or technology. It's about sharing for me. I think how do we share the wealth in our region? How do we share a country where a lot of resources but lack of demand, where other country has a lot of demand but lack of resources? How do we do that? And importantly, on the community level, once you have present in such a local community, you need to be part of such community. And what we did with Monsoon is we commit beyond the royalty fee we pay to the government of Laos. We commit directly to the local that improve their life in health, education, and uplift their career. And that has been our value, core value, that we will be part of the community where we operate in. And I think in the other sense, like Sekiguchi said, so Maria, how do we implement technology to the micro level? In my view, I think to prepare for electricity or EV, you need to upgrade a lot of grid and the distributed level. Policy is open access or allow more access to renewable to come into the grid, need technology, digital technology. I think we come across one technology that allowed dimming effect of whether it's EV charging or solar, which I think that's very small technology investment and policy going down to distributed level. I think I would like to see more of access to the renewable on the consumer level.
Very glad to hear that companies and entrepreneurs are thinking they want to go beyond policies and deploy solutions. It shows the maturity of technology and how comfortable you are with scaling those solutions. One of you who wants to take that question?
So let me take that one. So I go from my own experience that I have from day to day. So I live in Bangkok in a main street on Sukhumvit. I take my dog out for a walk every morning at 5. At 5 in the morning, less traffic, but still I see many cars coming out with the black smoke. And before we talk about going to the EV, I would like to see some policy where we can work with the government to replace some of those cars that are 20 years old, generating black smoke every morning on the main road of Bangkok, or it could be in Jakarta as well. So one of the incentives where government can consider before going to having nice EVs, because today who's buying EV? It's the rich, high income for second, third, fourth car, but not the first time buyers. So one policy that we can consider is to have the scrap incentive, replacement incentive, so that we can start from today taking out those cars that are 30, 40 years old in the market, replacing with a cleaner energy car, including gasoline car, which produces much less CO2 emission. We can do from there, from a practical start point of view. But I think it requires a bit of awareness that we don't go jump into the future. There are many things that we can do from today. And as Marie said, using what technology that are available today. So we don't need to start anything from scratch. There are technologies that we can provide. There are things that we can start from today.
Thank you. Meg, I see you have one more question.
Yeah, one last one for everyone. Can each panelist talk about one thing they are most excited to see in terms of creating the biggest climate impact in each of their areas of work?
Marie, do you want to take that?
Yeah, I'm really excited about, we're working on an idea at the moment to accelerate financing for decentralized decarbonization assets. So the large projects, and maybe Peck can argue about this, but are well served, right? People know how to price risk, they know how to finance large scale projects, but there's much less infrastructure available for projects that are say between the $300K to $2 million mark, and I think that's very much needed around the region. So we'll hopefully be launching something at the end of the year that addresses that.
Sure. Scaling up decentralized solutions.
Go ahead. Well, yeah, I would like to see a time where the electric vehicle become less expensive and be affordable to all the people in this part of the region. I think today the car is too expensive. Even the regular normal car is too expensive. How can we, I think one of the missions for automotive company, how can we make a car, cleaner car, that is accessible for all the people in this part of the region? So I would like to see that happen in coming years.
Do you have a timeline?
That's the challenge to say, right?
Okay. Peck, anything that you want to add here?
Sorry? What?
Anything that you want to add here?
No, I'm good where I am. I
Okay.
think what I do is exciting enough. So
Big projects, massive projects,
yeah.
send wind across borders. Okay,
So-
cool. Thanks so much,
Thank
dear
you.
panelists. Let's join our hands to welcome and thank our panelists
Thanks, Alan.
for the wonderful insights.